graduated early out of high school, went to work full-time, working full-time while going to school. It is good for these kids. And you know what these kids of today are? Majority of them are lazy. They don't know what work ethic is, but they know how to play video games all night. They know how to join gangs. They know how to get into trouble. Get a job and be responsible.
This pathetic, bitter politician is Cherie Tolson-Reich, and she serves in the Missouri State House of Representatives. And she's following the nationwide trend of Republicans wanting to turn the clock back on child laws to a time before she was even born.
At what point are people going to be self-responsible? Some people seem to think the government is the answer for everything. You know, free food, free health care, free this, free that, free. But it's not free. These young kids need to be taught self-responsibility.
Reich is about to show the biggest pitfall in the conservative mindset, thinking that just because you did something, anyone and everyone already has everything they need to do the same. But as you'll see, this is clearly not the case.
My parents always asked me, Cherie, how do you get A+? Well, Mom and Dad, you get 100% on your homework and you do extra credit. And throughout high school, when I was working 12 months out of the year, my high school counselor came to me and said, Cherie, you're bored. You got enough credits. Graduate early. I graduated early out of high school, went to work full-time, working full-time while going to school.
You know, it's hard to find the words to describe how infuriating and played out the personal responsibility and pull yourself up by your bootstraps narrative is. Reich's rant is the usual talking down tactic, but it's even more corrosive because she reduces everyday people full of hope and human struggles, people who are preyed upon and boxed in into one-dimensional villains.
Folks, what the hell are Republicans doing? Are they trying to take us back to the early 1900s? The Republican governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, signed legislation into law that eliminated the age verification requirement for youth workers. Like, what are they doing? All this bill does is make it easier for young children to be employed in the workforce. Like, hey, for the Republicans out there, and especially her, I'm not sure if you knew this, but child labor is a bad thing. Like, this is now the Republican platform, putting children back into the workforce. It's insane.
Reich is far from the only Republican working at the state level to send as many kids back to the mines as possible. And Republicans across the country are getting more creative, if you will, with their arguments to tear down labor protections and other safeguards for minors.
We have killed 2,000 babies since abortion became legal. Those are 2,000 people in the state of Nebraska that could be working and filling some of those positions that we have vacancies. They're not here. Our state population has not grown except by those foreigners who have moved here or refugees who have been placed here.
We have all these foreigners and refugees, could be white babies, doing the work.
I mean, did you hear that? He's not even trying to mask it. It's not enough to call Nebraska State Senator Steve Erdman bonkers. Unfortunately, we do have to dissect his call to action. Erdman is linking the Great Replacement conspiracy theory to abortion and the need for more child laborers, white child laborers to be specific, not children born to foreigners.
We now really do have Republican governors all over the country repealing child labor laws, repealing laws designed to protect kids from dangerous kinds of work. Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers vetoed that bill, saying, quote, asking more kids to work is not a serious plan or solution to address our statewide workforce issues. Or as one Democratic state assemblywoman in Wisconsin put it, quote, the answer to Wisconsin's worker shortage is not shorter workers.
Why would anyone want to repeal child safety laws? What do they get out of it?
That's happening in Arkansas because these restaurants and these industries that feel like, oh, we could pay kids to do this and we wouldn't have to pay them anything. And they're particularly taking advantage of immigrant children.
Yeah.
This has already happened in Arkansas. It's now happening in Iowa. I think it's one of the biggest things for us to
How old
be
are these kids?
14, 15,
Oh
16.
God.
It's horrifying.
We have seen teenagers dying in states like Wisconsin, Missouri, and Michigan because so many jobs are going unfilled, and many of these Republican legislatures would rather roll back child labor laws and put 11 and 13-year-olds back in the workplace than allow immigrants into their community and do what they've always done.
The number of children and youth found employed in violation of federal law has risen 88% since 2019. In my home state of Washington, a record number of businesses have been fined for violating child labor laws in recent years. Senator Casey and I actually introduced the Child Labor Act to help combat child labor and strengthen the law. And I know that DOL is already doing a lot to enforce our existing child labor protections.
As I think everybody knows, we have seen a rise in child labor. Part of the reason is because the Department of Labor is doing our job. It's unconscionable that this is happening, and the Department of Labor often stands as the most important bulwark against those kinds of practices.
You know, you won't hear Republicans talk about the sharp increase in child labor violations or the children who have died on the job in multiple different states from operating machinery they're legally not allowed to use, working in industries that legally ban the hiring of minors, the criminally low wages child workers receive, and the inherent exploitation of hiring a demographic of a worker who has less legal protections than other demographics. And things are doubly worse for undocumented immigrants, migrant workers, and anyone who has to work at such a young age for their and their families' survival. You know, the push to restrict more child labor regulations is about doing the bidding of Republican donors and business owners, of course, who already want to eliminate as many business and labor regulations as possible. And the byproduct of peeling back these restrictions is also the weakening of America's unions, deteriorating any hope of increasing union participation rates and crushing grassroots unionization movements before they can even start.